States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I haven't been given any announcement. Does anyone, any announcements to make? Oh, okay. The next meeting of the committee will be on December the 16th, December the 18th. Does anybody know that they are not going to be available for that meeting? Seeing none?
Good.
Okay, at this point in time, we are open for public comments. If there's anyone who wishes to address the committee on any subject other than a agenda item, please come forward and do so. Identify yourself. You will have 3 minutes. Seeing none, call for a meeting for close of public comments. Do we need to, don't need to do that? Okay. Okay. The minutes of the meeting, the Canal Advisory Committee meeting of October the 16th have been distributed. Are there any changes or additions? Seeing none, do I have a motion?
Jake Dye, move to approve. Second.
Second by Mr. Wahlberg. Okay, meetings have been approved. Reports from the staff.
Good afternoon. For the record, Kathy Miller, Canal Maintenance. In your agenda packets are your financial reports. Let me get there too. Were there any questions or concerns on the financial reports? No?
Okay. Budget utilization report.
Budget utilization report, you're going to see that there are 2 line items now for seawall replacement. One line item is for regular seawall replacement that's not being funded by FEMA. And then you have the Hurricane Ian seawall replacement. That line item is for projects that are where we receive a FEMA grant. So you can see that we've already spent $721,000 on projects. Just for your information, I don't know if you've seen it in the seawall update schedule. We did have a seawall that failed after Hurricane Idalia, so that was added to our list, and that will come out of that fund there, not the FEMA fund. We got to keep that money separate.
Right. Okay.
Any questions?
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's all right. Seeing none, move on to the seawall replacement status report.
Are there any questions or concerns with that? That's several pages. Again, I'm sorry.
No, just basically we're still fairly up on schedule for.
No. No,
Okay.
we are behind schedule.
We are.
We are behind schedule. So as the committee members know, we hired a consultant, Weiler Engineering, to manage the seawall replacement program, and they have meetings with the contractors, and, you know, they share that information that, hey, you know, you've completed this much work, and we're a percentage of this much into the contract. So they're working with the contractors, trying to get them back on speed. Again, they're supposed to have everything completed by November 2024.
Okay. Any other questions? None? Okay, permits?
Any questions on the permits?
No? Okay. Nope. Yes, we have a question.
Gene Fuller. Do you have adequate supplies of seawall panels and so on? That's not holding anybody up, I assume.
Yes, we do, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. You should come visit our yard. Okay, thank you.
Okay, capital improvement.
Yeah, for the record, Gary Disher. Capital improvement project, you can see we've reformatted it for this time around, got rid of all the other projects that we've already kind of finished out last fiscal year. Any questions on the disposal site project?
No.
All right. And then on to the master permitting agreement, same thing, we've cleaned that up this year after everything that we got rid of last fiscal year. Any questions on those two projects? The dredging and the spoil site again.
No?
I have just one question. What is RAI?
Request for additional information.
Ah, okay.
I guess it's just industry logo or industry term, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
How many RAIs have they issued on this particular project? It seems like they're never satisfied. They keep coming back and asking for more information.
Right, yeah, and that's pretty typical. What was it, when we went through our seawall permitting, that was over 2 years' worth of permitting, back and forth before we finally got a permit issued. So far, we're not doing too bad. What we submitted back in, when did we submit the applications? April 19th of 2023, and we've received the 6 of them so far. So, yeah, but we'll keep going back and forth until they're happy.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? No? Okay. Master permit agreement? Was that what we just did? Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. Okay. At this time, we will go into the quasi-judicial public hearings. At this time, as chair, I'm going to adjust the schedule so that we can do this thing a little bit more smoothly. We are going to move special permit CCSP 17-2021 to be the first permit that we discuss.
Good. Swearing. Got swearing.
Oh, yeah. If anyone here wishes to speak on any of the three special permits, we need to swear you in. So if you intend to speak, you need to stand and be sworn by the secretary.
Okay, anyone intending to offer testimony in today's proceedings, please stand and raise your right hand.
Yeah, any of the three. Yeah. Even if you're not going to speak, it's worth just standing up so we
Get that out of
get
the
it
way.
all out of the way.
There you go. Okay. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in today's proceedings? When you're ready to speak, please come to the podium, state your name, and indicate that you have been sworn. Thank you.
Ready to
Okay,
start?
ready.
All right. For the record, Gary Dishon, I have been sworn. I would like to introduce application number CCSP 17-2021 by Par Marine on behalf of the owners Bruce and Leslie Brown of Lot 2, Block 82, Section 7, also identified as 1023 Via Tripoli. The applicant is proposing to install a dock, a boat lift, and a walkboard. The reason for the special permit application is due to 3 of the pilings and a portion of the boat lift and a portion of the walkway being outside the structural limitation lines. Based on staff's review of the application per Article 2, Section 2-1E 4, favorable consideration is recommended.
Okay. Anyone wishing to speak on CCSP 17-2021, please come to the podium, state your name.
Good afternoon, Mike Parr from Par Marine Construction. I have been sworn.
Green.
What's up?
Bring it a little closer to you.
Oh. Mike Parr from Par Marine Construction. I have been sworn. Do you guys have any questions for me? It's a very similar design to the last couple of them.
Anyone have any questions? None?
Yes, sir.
Gene?
It appears that the boat lift is quite far from the seawall. Is there a specific reason for that?
It's inside. It's really not too far. The furthest out pile into the
It's only 22 feet,
right
or 23 feet.
22. Yeah, 23 feet from the seawall to the furthest out piling. So looks wise, it might look like it's out a little bit, but that doesn't put it very far out.
I guess my question refers to if you put, I don't know what size vessel on there, will it automatically be extending beyond the vessel limitation line?
No, sir. No, all of this is designed to pull in straight to avoid people backing in. That's kind of what we ended up with the 45 degree in these corners, is when you have, like if you put it inside that triangle or something similar to that, you still are shooting for a 22 or maybe even a 24-foot boat, you know, pulled in straight. If you do it inside the 45, you would just get that same boat and back it in, which is all kinds of safety and navigation compared to pulling in and parking it. But still, at this point, I mean, 22 to 24 feet would be max on the boat length.
And this drawing is a little deceiving because you can see the property line. You may be referencing the property line, whereas in fact the seawall cap is out here.
Right.
So it's the property line falls behind the seawall cap. So we've got, you know, a few feet or a couple of feet plus before we even get to where the face of the seawall is.
All right, thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions? I have a motion.
Thank you.
We close public?
Call for public
Anybody
3
else?
times.
Oh, first time. Okay. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on CCSP 17-2021? It's one. Anyone else wishing to speak on CCSP 17-2021? Anyone wishing to speak on permit CCSP 17-2021? Do I have a motion? Motion to close? Motion, Gene,
Move to close the hearing.
second?
Jake Dye, second.
Okay, members of the committee, any discussion?
This is just that, this is what we see month, or Jake Dye, this is what we see month after.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
What?
hang on. We have a motion and a second to close public hearing. Do we have a
Vote.
vote from the committee? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Okay, discussion.
This is pretty much what we see, and there's not much you can do on these small parcels that are at the end of the canal system. So we see it every month. If there was a better way, somebody would have figured it out by now.
Okay. Do I have a motion on CCSP 17-2021?
Jake Dye, move to approve CCSP 17-2021.
I have a second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve CCSP 17-2021. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
All right, moving on
Okay,
to
Gary?
the second one. I would like to introduce application number CCSP 03-2023 by Kiesling Construction on behalf of the owner David Lafferty of Lot 43, Block 20, Section 2, also identified as 175 Bayshore Court. The applicant is proposing to install a boat lift and walkboard. The reason for this special permit application is due to 3 of the pilings and a portion of the boat lift and a portion of the walkway being outside of the structural limitation lines. Based on staff's review of the application per Article 2, Section 2-1E4, favorable consideration is recommended. And I'll bring up the drawing on that one.
I'm sorry, which one are we looking at? 03-2023?
03-2023, yes, sir.
Yes, yeah, the first one on the list, 03-2023. Anyone wishing to speak?
Gary, just for the record, Jake Dye, I'm recusing myself from this as an employee of Kiesling Construction, so I will not be voting on it.
Okay, does anyone have would like to speak on CCSP 03-2023. Please come to the podium.
I have a question. Do we still have a quorum?
Yes. Yeah, it was looked at, so a quorum for this committee is 4. The fact that Jake has recused himself, we're still in a quorum situation. Please identify yourself, indicate you have been sworn.
I'm Jack Albers. I've been sworn in, and I'm represented on behalf of Keys and Construction and representing David Lafferty. Like kind of on the other one, this is even more simple. I mean, obviously just dealing with 30-foot property. The walkway is the safest and easiest way for on-load and offload any type of vessel. And I have been talked to David Lafferty on, he's talked to his neighbors. They all seem to approve everything on that. It helps with obviously the existing dock on all adjacent properties. It's a win-win for everyone. Any questions?
And do we have any questions? Gene?
I have the same question. Why is the lift so far from the seawall?
Well, a lot of times, like obviously, like when you're going the farthest point of the seawall itself, it's just a safer way to protect the vessel itself and to protect onloading and offloading, since everyone in the Isles deserves to have a type of lift.
My concern is, again, that it appears that the vessel, a normal vessel, may well stick out beyond the vessel limitation line.
I have like talked to David on that, and he understands that, and his vessel, as of right now, does not do that, and he has no concerns. He just basically wants to have a boat and be able to boat.
One more question. Yeah. Is there an existing dock that's going to remain?
No, it'll just strictly be walkway.
Clear what that square was up on along the seawall, if there is something there.
Yeah,
there was an existing kind of more of a triangular dock, but obviously that's getting demoed. So it's just basically the boat and the Trident lift is just going to go straight on, and then there's just going to be the walkway. So it's the least minimal and the easiest way to onload and offload.
Yeah, it says up here, existing dock TBR, so to be removed, and the note right up here. It's just covered up by that parcel ID.
Okay.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak?
Yes, I'm Mike Gooler. I've been sworn in. I live at 2805 Coral Way. That's 2 houses to the west of Mr. Lafferty. And the way I see it, it looks like most of this entire structure is outside the structural limits, and a good portion of the walkway is also outside the structural limits. So I've taught safe boating and other courses for the U.S. Power Squadrons for 30 years, and in my opinion, that this structure and the boat are going to cause difficulties, or it's going to cause alterations in the way at least 4 people have to dock their boats, especially in high wind conditions and winds in certain directions. It's one thing to have a boat. I know why there's 2 limits, and if a boat bumps into another boat, that's at a slow speed. That's a lot different than a boat bumping into a rigid structure at a slow speed. So the way I see it, I oppose this. To me, it's kind of an excessive. I mean, like I said, the entire boat lift seems to be outside the structural limits set by the code. Also, the most affected neighbor, if we had 2 of these boat lifts in both corners, the most affected neighbor in the middle could hardly get a boat in at all, and he's out of the country and unable to respond to this hearing. So if before approving this thing, I do believe that we should hear from the neighbor that's most affected. Also, in addition, I have a letter from another neighbor that's 3 houses kind of to the south. I'd like to read it. Dear committee members, we are writing to object to granting a special permit for the proposed boat lift and boat dock and lift. We are owners of a 37-foot sailboat across the canal for the proposed structure. We believe it would make our docking process much more difficult and less safe, particularly in high winds. The site of this type of dock does not align with existing codes and dock limitations, and we feel it will unfavorably distort the view of the canal. Therefore, it is our belief that the current structural code limit should stand. Sincerely, Dennis and Jean Alscheid. I appreciate the time to speak.
Any questions? Okay, thank you.
I have some questions.
Yep.
And, I mean, I kind of have the same thought process that the gentleman who was just speaking was. If somebody does want to put a dock down in the bottom corner.
Is your mic on?
Sorry. If somebody does, Jeff D'Amico, if somebody does want to put a lift in the bottom corner, what happens? Do they get precedence if the guy in the middle hasn't done anything yet? I guess what's the ruling on something like that? Because he's right. I mean, if they put in the exact same thing down at the bottom, the guy in the middle, he's going to have to put a mooring ball out in the middle of the canal and use a tender to get back and forth. How would we get a boat in there? I mean, these, you know, we keep seeing these, and I know it's a problem with these corners, but they keep getting further and further out. They keep getting bigger boats. Rather than getting an 18-foot boat, they want a 25 or 26-foot boat, and they have 30, 40 foot of seawall. It's just getting a little out of hand. You know, we're setting precedents here that we can't walk back.
Jake Dye, Kiesling Construction, I'm not part of this project, but to the general question that you asked, if the property owner on that, you know, on the seawall that's to the, you know, to the east and south of this particular property,
Yeah.
there's room to get a you know, a lift in there. The real problem that we've got is that when all of these, if we had a master plan and we fit everything together, we wouldn't put docks in parallel to the seawall like that. We would create it so that we've got an angle and everybody can get in.
Right.
Unfortunately, when the docks on the end were put in parallel to the seawall without consideration to how somebody was going to be able to get a dock into the real small ones, they got those docks set in without that consideration for what was going to happen later on. And so now all of the properties that haven't been sold in the past are now selling, and they're the ones with a small seawall, and everybody is trying to figure out how can they get a boat into those small parcels. You saw one just before this
Right.
presentation. We've seen them every single month. It's the same thing. Is there a way to get a boat into that a boat lift in and be able to get a boat in there? Yeah, there is. Is it tight? Yeah. When you buy a piece of property with a small seawall, you just inherit that problem.
Right, but I mean, the same with the gentleman that's applying for this right now. I mean, you buy a seawall with 40, what is this one, 40 foot, 30 foot? 30 foot. I mean, you kind of expect you're going to get a pretty tiny boat in there, and if you're going to try and stick a lift in there and stick it 20 feet out into their, however far this is, out into the canal.
If you look at the...
does everybody have a right to have a big boat, you know, that's infringing on other people?
Yeah, so if you look at the property and think about where a lift would go and what you would have to do to get in, and then think about how you have to maneuver in a marina, in all of the discussions where we require 50 feet of navigation space out there. I mean, think about when you go into a marina and you got 50 feet of navigation space. In most cases, you don't. So there is adequate maneuver space out there. There is the ability to get a lift in. Is it going to be restricted? Yeah, and that's one of the reasons that we see these 3-post lifts, and we see the what PAR calls the alpha lift, 2 posts close together on the end. There's no doubt everything's getting jammed up at the end of these canals, but that's.
How about something like a cradle lift? Is that an option, something that they can slide into and it's really held on?
Yeah, those are elevator lifts. They're not very popular in Punta Gorda, and the main reason for that, they're used when you have to do it. They're very popular over on the East Coast.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of metal in the water. Their maintenance, they're expensive. They're a maintenance effort to maintain because you got all that metal that's in the water and
they're not mounted to
aluminum.
posts
Huh?
they're not mounted to piling, cement, or?
No, they've got steel or aluminum I-beams that go down, and then it's like a forklift, and it comes up on these I-beams and raises out of the water.
Right.
We have to use a lot of them over in BSI where you've got a real narrow channel, but they're certainly easy to use there. They're just expensive.
Yeah.
And they're a maintenance issue. And there's also a limitation of the size that you can effectively get in there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like I
and
said, it's just, we're seeing more and more of this, and now we have one that's completely outside the structural limitation. When does it stop, We keep
Well-
pushing the boundaries, and again, we're setting precedents here, all over the place where we're going to allow anything to go.
Yeah, the precedent's been set a long time ago. We've been doing this for,
Seems like we're pushing it.
for years now. And that's mainly because now these properties are starting to sell, so we've had to figure out a solution to do it. But maybe, 4 or 5 years, we've seen this solution is, is it great? No, it's not. In this case, Mr. Lafferty has got the biggest issue. He doesn't have a whole lot of options. He's limited in the size of a boat that you can get in there. And to the question about, why have the lift far out, the boat balances with 2/3 of it in the center of the lift, so most of the boat's going to be forward on the lift, and you got to keep it off the seawall. So we try and get it out, as far as possible.
And Mr. D'Amico, in this case, the structural limitation line is all the way out here. So, and as we've discussed over the years, the safest way is for someone to be able to, as they're coming down the canal, and just pull straight in. So with a dock modification, they could put a 4-post lift out here and have a boat that comes in almost straight in, not necessarily straight in, but much safer than trying to get it to come in and slide sideways. And we've talked about that, even, modifying a code potentially to be able to allow these without having to do a special permit, to have everybody on the end come in at some sort of an angle so that they're not backing into anybody else, and everybody, has somewhat free water. And so this individual, just based on how wide the seawall is here, he could bring his boat in from this angle and have all 4 posts and a walkboard within the 45, so you wouldn't have to go through the special permit process, and or come in from the other side. And even if it wasn't a true 45, there's definitely room. I think that would be the safest option, instead of trying to come in and set your boat parallel, just based on what we talked about over the years, getting those guys pulling in from clean water as straight in as we can get them. And I think that's why.
I'm all for the slanted, on the angle. I mean, that works great. That's what I have. It works great. No
Right.
problems. But he would have to rip his existing dock out to do that, or would he be able to put it out far enough so that, and still be within the vessel limitation line?
Well, to have you could put probably a pretty substantial size boat. I'm sure Mr. Dye would vote, or not vote for that, but agree with that. If they were to clip the corner on the dock,
Right.
to allow that boat, the bow of the boat, to hang past on either side, you could clip the corner and have a lot of open water there to bring the bow past the 1/3, 2/3 rule on balance points over the center of the lifts.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, Ron Ludwig, just a comment to it seems to me that, the existing dock, if I've heard in the past when we're here, you're not able to just clip the dock. If that dock is going to be modified at all, it's going to be taken down and replaced with something different from that. But that's really beside the point. It doesn't deal with this particular application, I don't believe. So again, I have exactly the same concern that Jeff has. Looking at this, we are really beginning to push the boundaries of what we're allowed to do when the entire application is outside the limit. I mean, how far are we going to be willing to go? Those limits were established for a reason back in the day. Okay, we're living with them. But to just go completely out, to me, it caught my eye instantly as I was reviewing this application. So just, I recognize that we have this process because of these kinds of situations, but it seems to me as though in trying to find a solution, we're ignoring the rationale behind the rules in the first place. So that's just a comment on my part. Gene?
I think it's completely outside of the bounds to expect the neighbors to have to change anything or build anything or deconstruct anything or whatever. That's just off the table, as far as I'm concerned. Mm-hmm. And the question was really, well, okay, the next guy comes in on the lower corner lot here and wants to build something like that. Now you've got this box structure, and as I've seen, there's a fairly good-sized boat at that dock. There's nothing evil about having docks up against the seawall. I don't think there's any requirement that you have lifts so you can go straight in. So I'm concerned, and I think that, as I said earlier, if that three-post lift was pushed in as close as reasonable to the seawall, it would open up a lot more space. It would certainly satisfy my desire to not impinge too much on the neighbors.
Yeah, and remember now...
It strikes me that the center of that lift is 18 feet from the seawall. That's more than necessary.
Right, and remember, we don't let anybody dredge within 7 feet of a seawall, the dockside dredging, so we have that 7-foot berm. So they're within 5 feet from that first pile is where they can no longer dredge. So that, I know that's always been a consideration too, try to get the boat back away from the seawall because of that big berm that's
well, I don't know
there.
where the crossbars on the lift go. You mean
right. Oh, but the bow overhangs the front of the
bow is so shallow you don't have to dredge for the bow.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But the question is, I mean, it's always the question of the lift, not the bow.
From what I've seen, these angled boats don't have a problem with depth so much since the engine's sticking so far out into the canal.
The canal, right.
So the other thing is, Jake Dye, the other thing is that if Mr. Lafferty decided to buy a boat and keep it in the water, he could take it all the way out to the edge of the vessel limitation line, and he would take it, create even more of an obstacle than he creates with the lift, and we wouldn't be sitting here with a special permit. He can do that without a special permit. So when we're talking about how much of an obstacle, we really have to look at where the vessel limitation line is, not just the structure limitation line. Because if somebody wanted to just put some pilings out there with and put the vessel right to the edge of the vessel limitation line, they can do it. No special permit required. And they would stick out even farther and be even more of an obstacle.
Well, I disagree, because in order to put the pilings out there, you'd have to have a permit to go beyond the structural limitation lines.
No, you wouldn't, because you'd put the pilings in the center and with the vessel all the way out to the vessel limitation line. And so the pilings could easily be in the center. And in fact, we've had two special permit, well, we had two permits that we put in that did just that. We eliminated the lift and just put the boat on pilings on slide moors in the canal.
Ken?
I have a question about the diagram. These two existing docks, the one to the north and the one on the other side, I guess to the south, do they have an existing boat lift now? There's nothing shown, but...
One of the pictures shows it.
No boat lifts there?
No, please. You're not allowed to speak until you're recognized up there.
There is a boat.
Okay.
Or there was.
Mike Guler again. I just wanted to comment on his statement. Like, as I said before, there's a big difference between a boat slowly bumping into a rigid structure and a boat bumping into a boat that's just docked. I think that probably that's the reason for the two different limits between structure and boat. I understand the boat can be out to a further limit than the structure, but there's a big difference between slowly running it into a rigid structure.
Anything else, Ben?
No.
No? Okay. Any other questions? Anyone else wishing to speak on special permit CCSP 03-2023? Please state your name.
My name is Bill Weimer.
A little bit closer to the mic if you could, please.
Okay. My name is Bill Weimer. I live at 2802 Coral Way. I have been sworn in. And I'm right across the wall, or the road is Dave Lappert, so he's my neighbor across the road. My concern is with items C and D on the application that he put in. My experience is that variances such as this are quite likely to impede safe navigation and impede use on surrounding lands. This statement is based upon
Can you move the mic just a little bit closer? I don't know if that moves or not. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. This is based on my experience with a corner lot adjoining my property. The city official and the marine contractor advised the owner of in the corner lot, a front-end lift he imagined would exceed the boundaries and need variance, which they said at that time would not be approved. He was advised that the alternative design that stayed within the boundaries did not require a variance and would be approved. The alternative design utilized almost the entire space within its boundary. However, it was approved and installed. I'm saying this because this had two direct impacts on my safe navigation and enjoying the boating. First, before this was put in previously, I would safely dock my Catalina 30 right in front of my lot that I have at the end. It's no problem. Single-handedly do it with a safe margin and no accident. With the alternative design that they put in, the safety margin was significantly reduced and a second person is now required. So I adjusted and put in a kind of Rube Goldberg type of thing where I come in my bow on the east side and have it tied off, and then I have a line across the dock so that I have someone that can go and bring it down, and then I can pull on the line that's attached to the west side of my dock, and that way I can pull it precisely where it has to be, and that prevents it from going over into the smaller lift that he had put on the side. So I adjusted. This means that a second person is required, and I cannot single-handedly do it, so it affects me and the stern, but I'm able to do it appropriately. The second thing I wanted to mention is that during these situations when it's windy, I don't really go out because it's too close, so it limits the days that I can do it. I'm not complaining about the alternative design. The adjoining property owner did the right thing. He followed the rules and stayed within the boundaries. I did the right thing also. I found a way to accommodate him because I was in my boundaries and he was in my boundaries. We didn't need variances because we followed the rules. So my concern is that when we start changing these rules, it affects things. I bought a house and paid a price to have a certain amount of space. The corner lot that they put in, he paid a lot less than I did for his house, even though it's about the same size. In other words, that he was paying for getting a better deal because he had less seawall. I could have a larger boat because I paid more. And when you start changing these things and start talking about putting things down on the side, it's going to affect the property value. And I paid for it. So is it fair to do that? Is that the right way to do it? When you come in and buy a lot with a smaller lit, didn't you look at it? Didn't you know that? So I would say that one of the things you could possibly do is make sure that when there are new lots sold, just have something in it that says that this is the person understands this is the size boat and the size space they have to do. Make sure they know beforehand, as opposed to after the fact saying, but I can't get my bigger boat in there. So I encourage you not to approve the variance as it stands now for those reasons. At a minimum, I would say that it's also important to delay the final decision if the person that's affected the most in this case is not here because he's out of the country. So I would say that, in fairness, let that person speak for himself. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions, or?
Anyone have any questions? Yeah, Gene?
I didn't quite catch your opening. Are you one of the neighbors?
Yes, I live right across the
lot?
street. Oh, I am on the other side of the street. So I'm not talking about that canal. I'm talking about Coral Way.
Oh, so you're over there.
Yeah,
All right.
and I'm saying it is the same thing, the same situation, but I'm talking about what actually happened, not
That's fine.
theoretically
No,
whether
I don't
it
need
fit.
an explanation. I was just trying to
Okay,
get my
yeah,
bearings. Thanks.
So, okay. I have copies of this that I'll leave for you. Thank you.
Okay. Jake?
Just throw in two more little pieces of information. First of all, everybody pays the same amount into canal maintenance. So everybody, whether you got 30 feet of seawall or 165 feet of seawall, everybody pays the same amount into the canal maintenance fund. So there's that included. The other part is that you have no right to expect to use your neighbor or anybody else's waterway that's outside the navigation channel. So you got 50 feet of navigation channel that you are supposed to have freedom to maneuver in. If you have to maneuver your boat inside someone else's property line or inside, beyond that navigation channel, you really don't have a right to do that. That you're responsible for navigating within the navigation channel. So again, looking at in Mr. Lafferty's case, he can take a boat and tie it up anywhere he wants to in there, and he's got the right to do it. If he had a boat lift, and he, in this particular case, if we're concerned about that space, if he tied his boat in there, it would be the same obstacle in the same place. That has a lift to it, but it's still, that boat's going to be in the same location. And he doesn't have to have a permit, a special permit to do that. So that doesn't go away.
I would say my big concern is I look at this and have a hard time thinking that the boat is actually going to stay within the structure or the vessel limitation lines while it's on the lift.
If you look at where that, if you look at where the structural limitation line is, and you consider that the bulk of that boat has to be forward on the lift, that's very logical to believe that that boat would stay within the vessel limitation line. He's not going to be able to get a very big boat in there.
What's preventing it, I guess the same question, what's preventing it from moving it in towards the seawall another 5 feet?
The biggest, the biggest issue is the length of the boat and keeping it off the seawall. You take a boat and most of it's forward of the lift, and then you've got an anchor hanging out there. You've got to get enough space to be able to get it away from the seawall itself. Most people are looking for something larger to be safe out in the harbor. 24, 25, 26 feet is where you get into the size boat. So people are looking for a boat that gives them something where they can be out in the harbor and safe. We're not talking offshore. We're just talking about getting out into the harbor itself. The other thing is, the cradle beam. The shallowest part of the canal is always down those corners. And getting the cradle beam down low enough to be able to float the boat is a big issue in those corners there, and that's probably it. But the length of the boat's the biggest obstacle that you have to work with there. And nobody wants to take a boat right up to the seawall. Because somebody comes in with a wake and bounces you into the seawall, now you got damage.
Well, I have a problem with that because the center of the lift is 18 and a half feet from the seawall, if I read this right.
Okay.
And that seems like it's more than needed.
Okay, I'm not sure.
I mean, the whole point of this is to get it a little bit further into the...
The farther in you move it, the smaller the boat you're going to get. So, and again, it's if you took the lift out of this and you just put the boat there, you got the same situation.
Yeah, I understand that.
So what's the difference between having the lift or not having the lift? The obstacle is going to be in the same location.
Well, the difference is the code, of course. The difference between a structure and a vessel.
Right. Yeah, and these special permits are taking exception with they're taking both the structure and the vessel limitation lines into consideration. The committee in the past has had some flexibility with a structure limitation line, zero flexibility with a vessel limitation line, if I'm correct on that. I mean, I don't think we've ever violated the vessel limitation line.
Because once you do that, then you're so-called in the neighboring waters and or out in the navigable channels, so that's kind of the no-go
Right.
zone.
So,
Okay, thank you, Jake. Any other questions? Any other? All right, Ken?
Just as a
I think you got to hit your, I think you got to go green. There you go.
Just as a point of information, can we presume that the owner of the property to the right with the larger parcel was adequately notified of this situation?
The mail will go, or these mailers go out to everybody within, I forget the buffering, is it 200 feet or something like that? So everybody that was in that proximity was mailed notices.
Okay, and is there any record of his response?
We did, as far as I know, we didn't receive anything.
Okay, all right.
I'm Paige Weed. I've been sworn in, and are you talking about the owner to the right at the top? Oh,
This
there.
one here.
No, we were
That one there.
talking about-
That person there is on a 70-day cruise celebrating his wife's retirement. They're in Africa. I live at 2803. I sent the copies of it to him. He's having very much problems getting internet.
Right.
My husband has a statement to read from him. And
Is that the statement that was already read?
no, that
Oh, there's
was,
another.
that statement is from the person directly across from this applicant, who has a boat there, who's also in Illinois. Both these people will be back. The large dock that's mostly affected said he'd be, the cruise is done on the 22nd, and I think the other guy with the sailboat will be back around the 27th of December. So neither one are able to be here, and one has severe limitations on responding to something that's a permanent structure and going to affect his life forever.
All right, thank
That's
you.
the answer to your question.
When you're saying the person with the sailboat, are we talking about Lot 3 here?
Where do you say Lot 3?
Sorry, I'm looking at a different picture. Yeah, right, straight south, down,
That's me.
right there.
With the sailboat, that's the person in Illinois that the statement was read for, Dennis
Right,
and
right.
Jean Alshite.
Okay.
And I will say, I have a statement, of course, but the Kiesling rep, one of them got up and said that the neighbors were all notified. My first notification of this was the letter from the city, as was all the other neighbors that are here. So we were not notified by the applicant before this was done. We did not have any input into this before the permit was applied for. So that is not true.
All right. Jake?
So the contractor also could, if you were willing to table this, the contractor could go back and take a look at it and and take a look at alternatives and see what else, they can do. The other alternative is if it gets disapproved, then they take it back to, take it to city council. But, you've got you may want to let the contractor just take it back and look at it and see see if there are any adjustments to it.
Okay, are you speaking as Kiesling here, or do we need to talk to the gentleman?
Well, you can talk to him, or you can talk to me. You can talk to the company, but actually, he's the agent right there for it. So,
okay. So, am I hearing that the contractor is willing to postpone this to a date certain?
Yes.
Okay. The contractor has indicated that he's willing to postpone this. Do I have a motion from the?
We're still in public hearing.
Public comment. We're still in public.
Yeah, we've still got to go through
We're still in public comments? Okay.
We'd have to close the hearing first.
Have to close the hearing first?
I think so. Who's the legal eagle?
Yeah, we have.
She's checking. She's checking.
That is correct. So you guys can call for 3 times and then close public hearing, and then Jake, as the applicant, or the applicant, can come down and request postponement until the date certain, and then we will re-advertise again at that time, whatever
Right.
date y'all select.
Okay. All right. Anyone else wishing to speak on CCSP 03-2023? Yes,
I'd
ma'am.
like to speak to it. My name is Paige Weed. I live at 2803 Coral Way, right next door to this applicant. So I have some written things, and then as there's so many comments here, I have some comments as well that aren't as well organized. The applicant seeks relief from the following the Punta Gorda zoning code, and he has the burden of demonstrating entitlement to the requested special permit based on competent, substantial evidence. You have the power to deny this position. Can you hear me now? Okay. You have the power to deny this petition. As the applicant has not established approved criteria A through F is necessary, and as he has not demonstrated entitlement to the special permit, I ask for permit denial. Applicant's canal construction application is correct. Number 7, this is new construction. The applicant is not repairing the current dock and lift or replacing it in the same position. Number 10, there is no justification for this permit, and there was none given on number 10. Why does the applicant feel entitled to a 4-post lift and a center piling 25 feet from the seawall? There is no justification for relief from the zoning code. The current dock and 10K lift structure has served homeowners for many years. Applicant has no loss of use without this permit. Number 11, all approval criteria need to be true in order to obtain a special permit. However, A, this proposal is not harmonious with the general intent of the article, as it is in the way of navigation to our docks. It inhibits the two-way flow of traffic at the end of the canal. It impacts views and property value. This article the intent of it is to govern canals so safety needs are met, so neighborhoods aren't blighted, and to ensure homeowners don't have reduced use and value of their property by actions of others. This article makes structural lot lines, among other regulations, very clear, so that each homeowner knows the rules and each neighbor can depend on full use of their property. It does not seem to be in harmony with the article to give special permits allowing for major rules deviation when it can be achieved without a permit. C, this design will impede safe navigation. Boats will no longer be able to approach our dock from either direction, which at times is necessary for safety. Boats will find it more difficult to dock, especially with wind and tide issues. D, this permit would crowd the end of the canal and is not aesthetically compatible with homes and land. F, this permit would cause safety problems for boats coming into and out of neighborhood docks. It is a danger to those in the boat and interferes with options to dock in difficult winds and tides. This lift structure affects our welfare. It is detrimental to the enjoyment of the end of the canal by crowding, causes safety and navigational issues, and as other neighbors have seen, a tight end of the canal affects their real estate values. Excuse me, I got a cold. All this impacts our welfare. Again, as the applicant has not established approved criteria A through F, and as necessary, he has not demonstrated entitlement to the special permit, I ask for permit denial. So that's my prepared statement. But as listening to all of this discussion, I have a few notes. And I just wanted to say, first of all, that we were not approached by the neighbor before this was done. This has been in place with a boat there for years, by the previous owner and then for years by this owner. Previous comments aside from the first one and everything, this is not what should be happening. If you have a special use permit or a special permit, it doesn't follow the restrictions. You can't cut off somebody's dock. You can't lighten somebody else's ability to use their property by giving somebody else on a corner, they knew what they bought into. Let's see, if you say you're doing this all the time now, well, the ordinances are not changed. The zoning ordinances are not changed. You can't zone on ordinances that are not changed just because you keep allowing things. So when does it stop? Ms. Ronald, somebody said something, pushing the boundaries outside the yes, this is definitely pushing the boundaries outside the permitted use. It is very dangerous if you had a boat sticking out there and you hit it versus piling sitting out there. It's a lot more dangerous. I have, let's see, sorry, these aren't, just as I notes as I was sitting down. The boat size has not been addressed at all. We got a promise that it wouldn't stick into the canal, that it can't stick into the canal. This property was bought with a small boat. What size boat is it going to have? And are you going to put in the permit a limit to the size of the boat at all? Or is, what are people entitled to? If you buy a small end of dock, are you entitled to a 30-foot boat? Are you entitled to that? And we are entitled to have a lift and a large boat. And would that obstruct that? Somebody talked about the 50-foot navigational channel and people don't have a right to use it. Well, that end of the canal is pretty narrow. It's making it worse. Also one thing that hasn't been mentioned, the corner property, who people aren't here, is an Airbnb. There's people using that place that don't know how to use a boat. So it is safety, not just for people living all the time here, but for an approved Airbnb, or I don't know if it's approved, but it is. So I have a lot more to say, but I can't think about it right now.
Okay.
And I guess if you're going to delay this, I would like this turned down, period. They can start over. If you're going to delay it, I ask that you delay it till at least January or February when the other people are in town.
Thank you.
Questions?
Any questions? No? Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? CCSP 03-2023.
I'm Jeff Weed. I've been sworn in. I'm married to Paige, and I live at 2803 Coral Way, which is at the top of the drawing right there. We request that the committee deny the special permit on the grounds that the proposed lift structure would extend too far into the canal and impede safe navigation for boats attempting to access our dock. The lift, with or without a boat on it, would block approach to our dock from the east, which is often desirable in windy conditions. We purchased our property with the expectation that ordinances would be respected and enforced. There is no compelling reason to approve this permit request because there are alternatives that do not extend outside the structure limitation lines. The proposed 10K lift is entirely new and replaces the existing, although hurricane damaged 10K, I call it a side mount, but I think maybe it's an elevator mount lift that is currently within the structure limitation lines. The existing side mount lift can be simply replaced with a new one using a similar design. There would be no special permit needed and no new impediment to boat navigation. Dave did talk to me about putting a lift in some months ago, and he said he was going to remove his dock and going to put something in straight out, but he never said anything about exceeding the structure limitation lines, ever. John and Maria Branch, who live in the property to the right at the end of the canal, the proposed lift they would be affected to a much greater degree. It would become impossible for a boat to approach the dock from the north, and if the permit is granted, there will likely be something similar proposed for the owners on the lot on the other corner of the canal, thereby boxing in the branch dock and impeding access from both north and south. This is certainly an impediment to safe navigation, especially on windy days, and would be functionally incompatible with the use of their existing dock. We're greatly concerned with the Branches dock, even though it's not ours. The proposed lift would surely be detrimental to the Branches' enjoyment of their property. It's not our dock, but it's our canal neighborhood, and we care a lot. John and Maria Branch are affected by the proposed lift more than anyone else. They cannot attend this meeting because they are on an extended trip overseas and did not receive the hearing notice via U.S. mail. We contacted them via email and provided a copy of the petition. They have very limited internet access, and we did get an email back from Mr. Branch, and I'd like to read it to you. He says, "We are on a ship visiting Africa until December 22nd. Today I have internet in the Seychelles and I reviewed the variants. I wish I could be there as I had no idea the piling would interfere with my clear space. Please tell Dave that the interference would not be acceptable to us." And it's signed John Branch. The property owners on both sides of the proposed lift are against it. We request that the committee deny the special permit based on navigational and functional concerns. Short of that, we request that the committee provide a continuance allowing John and Maria Branch an opportunity to present their case in person at a future meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? CCSP 0323. What?
One general comment, not to say anything about your arguments, but I will say that everything we do here is within the code, including variances. So we hear this all the time. Oh, you guys are breaking the law. We're not breaking the law.
Okay.
Paige Weed, I have a question on that. I know permitted uses are legal and variances are given, but if somebody has clear use of their land and clear knowledge of what they bought into, what is the reason for allowing a variance?
I would
what is
like
a special permit?
To note that this is a public comment period.
Right.
We're supposed to have people limited to 1 3-minute opportunity to speak. And also, I would like to note that per the quasi-judicial procedure adopted by the city, and just so everyone else knows too, there's a couple things I'd like to note. I'm going to read a portion of it right now. A city council or board member may read a written communication from any person. However, a written communication that relates to a quasi-judicial action, such as this, pending before the council or board shall not be presumed prejudicial to the action, and such written communication shall be made a part of the record before final action on the matter. Such written communication, however, is considered to be hearsay and may not be the basis of any decision. For everybody that's present and in communication with some of the property owners that aren't here today, if you could perhaps pass on to them that there is a process to file to become an intervener. We can provide more information on that outside of this meeting if this matter does get continued.
Thank you. I thought that 3-minute limit was for the initial, and then okay, I apologize.
Can I, oh, is this the comment period?
Pardon me?
Can I still talk?
Well, you have 3 minutes.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess, you know, it'd be nice to know the rules ahead of time, be prepared for future. And I guess, too, it's been a little strange to have a sitting member of the committee also involved in the financial deal, this application, who steps up to the mic every time we sit down and gives you information that we can't respond to, and is not held to the 3-minute rule. So I think this whole thing is kind of kittywampus. And then also this intervener thing, we could have had that done before as well. It'd be nice to put it in the, since there's so many people out of town at so many places, in the notice for the hearing. If you cannot be there, here's the intervener form, because it could have been done at least with the Alshites. So.
Okay, thank you. Well, just to clarify the situation here, allowing folks to talk back and forth here I thought was part of this particular process and not limited to the 3 minutes, so that was my error, and I apologize for that. Okay, anyone else wishing to speak on CCSP 03-2023?
I did ask a question that didn't get answered. On what basis do you grant these special permits if there's use of the property? You know, if somebody can't use their property at all, I can see where you'd give them a special permit. But if they just want a bigger boat than their property allows, is that okay?
Well, that's one of the things that we are required to take into account as we look at this, which is why we talk about the structural limitation lines and the vessel limitation lines. Those are our guidelines to determine whether or not the permit meets the requirements that we have to live with. So that's that.
But if a smaller boat would fit within the structural limitation lines, what basis is something like this with everything outside that granted?
The formal answer to this is that article in the Section 6 of the city code, which is waterways and boats and stuff, I forget the exact title.
Yeah.
Article 2, Section 2.1C4 explains 6 criteria that we are allowed to use, and only those 6 that we are allowed to use. And you can read them or whatever, but the particular ones would be interfere with navigation and harmony with the general intent and purpose.
Yeah, that's what I went down.
So there aren't any other hard and fast rules about we can approve 20% over 100% or anything like that. It's those 6 criteria, which is the only legal definition of what can and cannot be approved.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on CCSP 03-2023? I think that's third time. Do I have a motion to close public hearing?
So moved.
Roll. Ken approve. Jeff second. Shall we close what's the vote? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Public hearing is closed on CCSP 20. Okay, so oops.
Hope your 3 minutes are up.
That's my fault. Okay, now I'm not sure exactly what the next step is here. Any further discussion on CCSP 2023 by the committee?
I think we need a motion.
We motioned to close the public hearing. Now we're in discussion, right? So, no further discussion? Oh.
Yes.
Oh, all right. Hang on. Okay.
In my view, the right thing to do today is to table this without prejudice and allow the contractor and the owner and so on to scrub this a little bit and come back to us. I assume, I'm not sure that I know this, that there's no requirement for a new special permit or anything else. If it's just tabled, is that?
Right, they wouldn't have to reapply because the application is still in effect, but we would send out public notices again. Typical noticing period would occur, but you guys have to select a date certain for that, for when y'all want them to come back.
Okay.
And based on what I heard, if some of the folks aren't going to be here in December, I'm not sure how long out the contractor would like that.
I mean, I would look at this as sort of like a negotiation. You know, what's your final and best offer? Hearing all that you've heard today, and if it's exactly the same, fine, then we vote it up or down. If it's different, then there's a different vote. That's all I'm suggesting.
Yeah. Okay. I need a clarification here. It's my understanding if we postpone to a date certain, it has to be the next meeting. Can we postpone it beyond that if they're willing?
Yes.
If the contractor is willing to postpone.
It just has to be on our normally scheduled meeting. days.
Okay. All right. Any further?
I know this is not part of the public hearing part, but this also gives the opportunity for the people who intended to be interveners and didn't understand that process, so they didn't follow it. This gives them an opportunity also to maybe better assert themselves into the process.
Okay. Any further discussion?
No.
All right. Do I have a motion?
And that's, I move that we table this to the next regularly scheduled meeting.
The next regularly scheduled meeting is before the people are going to get back. So
January, you're looking for January.
we need to postpone it out to January.
Frankly, I'm not persuaded by the fact that the people aren't here. They now have 30 days, more or less, to make their comments and so on. But whichever way you want to do it is fine. You can postpone it to January.
I prefer giving them the chance to talk.
I do
mean,
too.
if they are out of town and this is kind of an exceptional, they're overseas.
Does it have to be re-advertised and so on?
Yes, it will be re-advertised.
Oh.
Yeah, it all has to
30
follow
days
that same
prior to
sequence.
I believe it's 15-day noticing period.
I'm sorry, the public meeting has closed. Right. Okay.
Then
Do I have a motion?
I'll withdraw my comment about offering a motion until we sort this out.
Well,
We can amend your motion.
yeah, you can amend your
Nobody seconded
motion
it anyhow.
to change the date to the January meeting.
If that works.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I would agree with
Okay, well, there's a motion to amend the initial motion from the next meeting to the January 2024 meeting. Do I have a second for that motion?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It passes. So the new motion is that this CCSP 03-2023 be postponed to the January 2024 Canal Advisory Committee meeting. All in favor?
Thought we just voted.
No, we voted on the amendment
Oh,
to the,
okay.
to now,
All right.
now we're voting on the amendment.
Aye.
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 Okay, opposed? It passes unanimously. CCSB 03-2023 should be postponed to the January 2024 meeting. Thank you. Okay. Okay, Gary, you're on.
All right. Moving on to the last one. Let's see here.
CCSP 04-2023.
All right, for the record, Gary Disher, and I have been sworn. I would like to introduce application number CCSP 04-2023 by Keysland Construction on behalf of the owner, Chester Hollis, of Lot 12, Block 213, Section 14, also identified as 1380 Willett Court. The applicant is proposing to install a dock, a boat lift, and a walkboard. The reason for the special permit application is due to 3 of the pilings, a portion of the boat lift, and a portion of the walkway being outside the structural limitation lines. Based on staff's review of the application per Article 2, Section 2-1E, 4, favorable consideration is recommended.
Okay, anyone wishing to speak on CCSP 04-2023? Please come to the podium. State your name for the record.
Jake Dye, Keysland Construction, I have been sworn in. So this is, we're right back to the corners again. You saw one earlier today that was kind of the same thing. We keep looking for better ways to do it, but keeping the boats off the seawall and giving them an opportunity to come straight in on these short properties is really the only way we've been able to make it work. And as like in this one, when we put them in, we orient them so that they're going to have the least amount of impact on the adjacent properties. If you look at the property to the south, if you see where that dock is farther to the left than to the right, and the logical place to put a boat lift would be in the opposite end. So we try and keep it, we would try and create as little obstacle as we can. This is different than the last one. This has a 4-post lift rather than 3-post lift. In reality, it doesn't make a whole lot of difference whether you got a 3-post lift or a 4-post lift. The boat's going to be in the same location, but the 4-post lift is more stable than the 3-post lift, and they just fare better in the storms than the 3-post lifts do.
Any questions?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I have a question. I mean, it looks to me like the dock on the south is well within its own structure limitation lines. Is that not correct?
You talking about the adjacent properties, Doc?
Yeah, the adjacent property.
It's within the structure limitation line.
So I didn't understand your argument about the south side is precluded.
When we cite when we put that lift in the angle, we try to make it so that the property to the north isn't as affected in the same way with the property to the south. So we just try to angle it in a way so it doesn't create an obstacle to the adjacent properties. The property in the center has the biggest problem.
Okay, I guess I must have heard something you didn't say then. Okay.
I probably didn't say it.
So is the intent to pull in forward on this, obviously, or am I wrong about that?
The intent is to pretty much pull straight in.
Okay, I guess the concern I have is this, if I'm not mistaken, this is a 13,000-pound boat lift.
Is it what?
13,000-pound boat lift. Is that correct?
You're right.
So my expectation is he's looking to get a fairly large boat. Is it going to fit within the structure not the structure, but the vessel limitation lines? Same questions I had with pretty much the last one.
Yeah, so the reason for the 13,000-pound lift as opposed to the 10,000-pound lift is, first of all, there's not much difference in price. And so when you get a larger lift, you get more capacity. And if you're trying to stay away from the seawall, then the lift is not going to be balanced as well. And the 13,000-pound lift can handle the having it misbalanced. 10,000-pound lift, when you're smaller the lift, you got to get it just right. 13, you've got a little bit more leeway to get the boat
meaning the balancing the boat, or where the center of gravity is on the lift, is what you're saying?
Well, balance. I mean, every boat's different.
Yeah.
Generally, boats, 2/3 of the weight is aft of the center line. So you have 2/3 of the boat's going to be forward of the center of the lift.
Right, but I didn't quite get what you were saying. Going with the 13,000 gives you leeway on moving the center of gravity on the lift, is what you're saying, or something else?
Yes, you could be off balance and not affect the lift that much. When you start getting close to the seawall, it becomes pretty attractive to give yourself a little bit of leeway. For the boat owner who's not all that experienced, giving them a couple extra feet at the seawall is attractive to them. Again, the price break between a 10,000 or 13,000-pound lift and it's the same footprint. There's no difference in the size of the lift, whether it's 10,000 or 13. It's exactly the same size. This gives you a little bit more flexibility.
Right.
Gary, do we have a photo of this?
An actual photograph or an aerial?
Yeah, well, the aerial, yeah. Okay, thank you. Gene, you were going to say something?
Question. I mean, it appears you've drawn in a 10-foot dock here. I realize that's popular these days, but in a tight little corner, why not a 7?
You could, but if you look at where the 10-foot dock is, the 10-foot dock goes farther, allows you to go from the dock to the walkway easier than a 7-foot dock.
Well,
And a 10-foot, everybody likes a 10-foot dock. You can put table and chairs out there. You can put kayaks. Really doesn't have much of it. We make that dock to fit, so it would make a difference whether it's a 7 or a 10-foot dock.
Yeah, I noticed it's got angles and cutouts and so on, but
Right.
if it was a 7, it would slide down the seawall 3 feet further and still be within the structure limitation line.
Oh, I mean, I can do, well, first of all, there's no way to get everything inside the structural limitation line.
I understand, the lift is going to be outside, but it seems like you've pushed the
dock's all inside.
right to the absolute limit
Yeah.
possible, and it strikes me again that this is one of these things that somebody's trying to take advantage of every square inch rather than building a functional structure.
So the dock is all inside the structural limitation line.
Okay. It just seems like if you had a 7-foot dock and you slid it down a little bit, you could move the lift a little bit and leave a little bit more room to the property to the north. That's all I'm thinking. I'm just wondering why it was done that way, but
The main reason for doing it that way is to give the property owner dock space for kayak and stuff like that. So I'm just answering questions.
Yes, I understand.
Yeah. So that, I mean, that's a key thing. Could we put a 7-foot dock in? Yes. If you saw the last special permit, it didn't have a dock, it just used a walkway. Those are all options, but the dock is attractive to fish from, put your kayaks on it, table and chairs if you want to do it, which you only use one time, but that's okay.
Okay, thank you, Jake. Anyone else wishing to speak on CCSB 04-2023? Anyone else wishing to speak? Oh, I'm sorry.
I've been sworn in. My name is Ray Grimes. I'm the next door neighbor to Chet. I didn't plan on speaking because the way the thing was set up now, when I first looked at it, it was fine. Until I didn't realize it was a 13,000-pound lift. And as far as the sidewalk being, you guys approving that? I mean, you approved it before it's already put in. That's a done deal. But anyway, I am concerned now with the bigger lift and extra space he wants. Because although I don't have my lift in here, I had it priced out about 2 years ago by people here now and in the COVA. Next time I went to put it in, it was the storms. And then when I got it ready to go, it got a little expensive. The dock was cheap. The extra $3,000 for electrician, it stopped me for a little while. But anyway, where it sits now, exactly where it sits now, as a neighbor, I can live with that. This idea you just mentioned about moving just a little bit to the north, it'd mess everybody up. If this thing's going to be changed a foot in my direction, it messes me up because on the other side of me, I got a 42-foot sailboat. And what we got to consider here is people may want to put a sailboat in here. In the end, it's tough. So now I got a 42-foot sailboat, an ocean-going vessel on my right. It's going to box me in real good. Chet knew, people buy these lots, they know what they got when they bought it. Now he's trying to expand it. I'm worried about the size of the boat. And my understanding is you don't ever say, we approve this contingent upon only having a 28-foot boat or anything such. So if we can't limit that, and he puts that 34-foot boat in there, you can't do anything about it. So the comments about moving just a little bit is what concerns me the most. If it's approved as is, no changes, as the neighbor on this side, and I can't speak for the other neighbor, I don't object to it, but if there's any change to it, I would fiercely have to formally object to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on CCSP 04-2023? Anyone else wishing to speak on CCSP 04-2023? Anyone else wishing to speak on CCSP 04-2023? Do I have a motion?
I move we close the hearing.
Motion to close the public hearing on 04-2023. Do I have a second?
Close the comment.
Comments, yes. Close comments, public comments. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Jeff. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Public session is closed. Any comments from the committee? Anyone? No? Okay. So, do I have a motion on CCSP 04-2023?
I'm torn. I have the exact same thoughts as the last discussion we just had. I mean, we're trying to shoehorn a big boat into a small spot again. Sorry? Oh, again, I'm torn. The same concerns I had with our last discussion with the previous application. We're trying to shoehorn a big boat, or bigger boat than really should belong on a lot this size into this. That's my thoughts. Yeah, that's just my thoughts going forward. We have, we're trying to get big boats in here. People want bigger boats, but you buy these small lots on the end, maybe you shouldn't have a boat, a 27, 28-foot boat.
Any other discussion, any other thoughts? Well, do we have a motion for 2023, for 04-2023? What happens if we don't have a motion? It dies? We need a motion.
A motion one way or another.
Huh?
A motion one way or another.
Yeah.
Got to have one.
Okay.
Should we, Ken Rollins, should we, in light of the decision on the previous application, perhaps consider delaying our decision on this one also?
I don't think we have the same kind of a situation but we can.
It's my understanding that the next door lot is vacant still. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
It shows on the
according to
pictures,
this
but the pictures
area.
aren't always necessarily right, because
True.
the one on the upper corner doesn't show a boat lift, but it says boat lift on the chart.
Yeah, true.
Where? You looking at the same one?
I mean, I have the same concern that we had on the other one, that eventually when somebody builds on that tip lot there, they're going to be, or whatever it is, the opposite of the tip lot, they're going to be squeezed right out. I mean, if you look at the vessel limitation lines, it's only about 20 feet long on the outside.
It's kind of...
I would much rather see the lift on the other sides where the person has essentially a full-length seawall.
No, we can't have discussion. So, I guess I'm having a little bit of a concern here in that the first one that the CCSP 17-2021 that we approved was basically the same situation as this one is. So I don't see where we don't have the problem of proper representation of the people affected by this particular application. So I don't see postponing it being an option, but I may be wrong. I mean, I haven't been in this situation before. what would, in your mind, what would be the benefit of postponing this another month?
Yeah. I don't see a real benefit. I don't know that I'm ready to approve it based on the similarities. We had some serious objections. I don't know, we don't have any representations that someone wasn't advised as we did in the previous case.
Jake, can you come up? I'd like to ask a question. Given this particular situation, what we're talking about, what you've heard us talking about up here, would the contractor entertain a delay of 1 month?
Would the contractor entertain a delay?
And the owner, naturally.
Yeah, in this particular case, we could, we go back and work with the property owner and take a look at it. I think when we do that, we're going to come, there aren't a lot of options on what we do, but at least what we can do is we can come back and explain to you why every piece of it is exactly the way it is. I can do that right now, but it might be helpful if we let it settle.
Okay. Okay. Do we have a motion?
Motion to what, to let it?
To delay.
Delay,
Yeah.
to a date
To
certain?
a date certain.
Yeah, motion to delay to date certain next month.
With a date? Yeah, well, once we get into this, we'll set the date up. But do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. We have motion and second to delay to a date certain, that date being the next
December 18th.
December meeting.
Yeah, December 18th, 2023.
December 18th,
Public comments closed.
Public session is, I was asking him a question because he represents the
he's the
person
applicant.
we're delaying.
Yeah, being the applicant.
Huh?
Yeah, him being the applicant, he could do that.
Yeah, right. Okay. Or we have that in the record. Okay, we have a motion to delay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it passed. We will delay CCSP 04-2023 to the December 18, 2023 Canal Advisory Committee meeting. So now we get into staff comments.
And I see Kathy has left the building. So I'm not sure. Let me open up the agenda here and take a look and see what she may have been presenting. Did she let you know what she was? Okay, good. I thought that's, okay, by all means, take over while I try to find this.
Regarding the January meeting, your meeting falls on Martin Luther King Day of each year, so we need to select an alternate date. We are somewhat limited as we have to work around the Military Heritage Museum's schedule, so it looks like we could hold the meeting either in the morning of the 16th or 18th of January, if that will work for members.
16th or what?
16th?
18th, 16th or 18th.
January.
I would prefer the 18th if possible. What time are we talking?
They don't have an event scheduled on the calendar currently, it looks like, until 1 p.m., so in the morning, 9 or later, between 9 and 10 probably, given how long the meetings can run.
Okay.
Yeah, the 18th works for me.
Yeah, no
18th.
problem.
Yeah, 18th is let's set the 18th.
Right, and what time would you like us to reach out to the museum to confirm?
What, 9:30? With 9:30?
9:30?
Yeah, 9:30. Yeah.
right. We'll confirm at the next meeting that the date's available.
Okay, thank you.
18th?
Good. Okay, did you find anything?
Yes, sir, I sure did. And I think this ties back into what she had said, or what she had started to mention, and the Hurricane seawall restoration status. What we've got here basically is this is information compiled based on the November 9th, 2023 progress meeting, their progress meeting number 5 with contractors. So this was, in essence, just pulled from not record data, but pay application data. So it shows that as of that date, there's 550 total days. We're on day 184. So out of the contract time, we're currently sitting at 33.5% of the contract time utilized. And then we look at, the earned to date's not that big of a deal per se, but it still shows we're aggregate of 6.9% earned. The important part I think that she was wanting to highlight was over here, this side of the table is our the estimated total linear footage of wall. I've got it broke out per contractor and per zone. How much seawall has been installed per the pay app, and remember now, when we say seawall installed per the pay app, that doesn't mean the sod is placed, and we don't determine a project to be done until sod is laid. So this is just based on wall set, wall set and completed there. So Marine Contracting Group aggregate total 2,050 feet. They're at 13% for their aggregate of all 4 of their zones. Economy Dock is 13.8% completed with theirs, and R.J. Gorman is at 5% aggregate total. And you can obviously see, Northeast 2, 9.9, Northwest 2, 2.6%, Southwest 4.6. So let's see, you got Northwest 1, 9.6%, and Southeast 11.6 for MCG. What's worrisome per se, I'm not sure when they're going to catch the gear that they need to get into, but 33.5% of the time is done, and they're barely over 10%, or barely under 10%, 9% aggregate wall set. So that's what Kathy was mentioning as being, we're behind, greatly behind in regard to wall going in. I'm not sure exactly what, I've heard that some of the contractors are bringing in extra sub crews. So they've got a wall set crew, and now they're starting up cap crews, subcontractors. So that way they can move their wall set crews on down the line, start setting more wall while the subcontractors come in and chase them with caps. And that may help, speed our process up. But we do have some catching up to do. And she wanted to make you all aware of the fact that we weren't where we should be based on the time.
Okay. So is that just because this one contractor is underperforming, or is it he started later than the others, or?
No, it was, and it's not just one contractor. It's, you figure Marine Contracting Group for y'all's 2 zones, 9.6% and 11.6%. So they should be closer to 30%, and they're, a third of that. Same Economy Dock is doing a little better regarding percentage. They've only got the 1 zone, but they're at 13.8. So they're about, a little less than half of what they should be producing. And then R.J. Gorman, 9.9, so they're a third there, 2.6 and 4.6. So they're, a 612th or whatever. They're significantly behind in regard to progress.
Okay, Gene?
2 questions. One is, what's the trend? Is it improving or flat or whatever?
I can't hear it, Gene.
What is the trend? Is it improving or flat, or, is it getting better?
That I'm not sure if. I just compiled this data because I just got those progress meeting notes, so I haven't gone in and looked at, I didn't go back and pull the notes for 1, 2, 3, 4, the first 4 meetings. I can do that and see if I can generate some kind of a trend line analysis for you guys to see if we're speeding up, and which we should be.
If there was a problem that's now been fixed or something.
Right, right.
The other question is, if you put in the partial work, guys got paid by the hour for doing the work and so on, if you put that in, would that change the percentages very much or not?
That I don't know, because we're just basing, the critical number here is just the linear footage done. Doesn't matter how long it takes them to do it. And obviously, everybody's out there working all day, every day. It's just some of the guys aren't obviously putting the number of panels in per day that some of the other crews are.
The question is, if you looked at the total percentage of the actual work that needs to be done, forget about whether it's complete or not, how would that compare to these numbers? Do you have any idea?
I didn't bring that table with me, but yes, I did do an analysis. I wish I had the numbers off the top of my head, and I don't have that here with me. But I did run an analysis on what they needed to do to get there, to get to the finish line. But unfortunately, I don't have that.
It just strikes me that the accounting method here, that you're only counting completed ones and so on, probably undercounts the amount of work that's actually been done.
Right, but then in our world, if the wall's not set, the work's not done. That's our critical line in the sand.
In terms of the time it's going to take them to do something, if they've already completed a job, but you're not counting it as complete, then, that's not bad. It's just something that ought to be recognized.
Sure, yeah. I'll do some more searching on if that data set's even available for me to run, or I'll try to find some sort of a data, if it's, I don't know if the contractors can provide, here's how much wall we have set. I don't know if that lives out there in the world.
I know the financial people don't like to work that way, but as far as figuring out how far we really are.
I'm sure that each individual contractor has some kind of a project management software that gives them a percent of completion by address, right? That's not based on start and finish dates. It's based on this is how far we've worked so far. And it might be interesting. I think it's a very, very good comment that, going by the units completed may be painting a darker picture than it really is. That's all. Yeah, so anyway, if you can, it would be interesting to know. Yeah. Because, everyone talks about what's going on with the seawalls. Do you see anybody in your neighborhood and all this kind of stuff. So, okay, thank you. Is that the only staff comments?
Yeah, I'm hoping that was it. Yeah, that was the only attachment we had in the agenda, so
okay,
we'll have to go with it.
Member comments?
This corner thing,
so,
the
Jake,
meeting's still going.
I'm sorry.
I just do not have it part of the record.
Huh? Oh,
Thoughts?
okay. All right, you have no other comments?
Well, okay, we can't talk outside the meeting.
Nope.
Yeah, we
Sunshine law, so if you want to make a comment, now's the time.
And the party who might object to it has left the room.
So, just one comment from me. This place sucks up sound like you wouldn't believe. You can hear each other here. You can't hear what you're saying out there. It's really important for us to speak into the microphone. You can't hear a squat out there.
Really?
The audio system in here is terrible.
This thing, this is made to suck up sound.
My comment is, everybody knows I'm a realtor, and we've sold quite a few lots. And unfortunately, there's a lot of lack of information on the part of people who buy these lots. For example, I have a neighbor. He's convinced he owns a standard lot. That's what his realtor told him.
Yeah.
It's a 55-footer. He's next to one of these 30-footers. The way we deal with it on these corners is if you want to go over 20 foot, this is not the lot for you. Don't buy it, because you might be able to get a variance, but you're always going to have unhappy neighbors. it's just, you're just asking for upset people.
So I see it all the time because as a contractor, I see the exact same thing. The reality, and there are limitations to how far we'll go, but the reality is, and I got a list and I can bring it in, of all the special permits that we have approved over, I guess I've been on the committee now for like 4 or 5 years or so. I mean, dozens of special permits, just like the ones that we didn't like today, we've approved them in the past. So we've either, I mean, we've got to have a come to Jesus on how we're going to treat the codes and put some consistency to it, because, you know, one month we don't have a problem with it, next month we do. 3 special permits, all almost the same today. One of them, no problem at all, went through, no discussion. 2, we had, well, 1 we had a lot of problems with, and the other one, we heard the homeowner adjacent to him say that he didn't have a problem with it. 1 got approved and the others got tabled. So I think there's a lack of consistency in how we're treating these things. If there's controversy associated with it, we back away from it. I think we need to start looking at what the what the code says and use the 6 criteria and use those exclusively. I think if the city attorney, or at least the Sarah has told us in many in the past that there's certain information that we can accept into the committee, and there's certain information we're not supposed to, or that we shouldn't have to accept.
Well, I think the stage was set with the second one. Number 1, there were objections, more objections, certainly, but the part that bothered me was that 2 people who were directly affected had no opportunity, practically, even though legally they did because they were noticed. But it just hit me the wrong way.
Yeah, and that's a problem I think we have, because you can send it to them. Not everybody, especially if you're on a boat, you're probably not going to get the information.
I've read these 6 criteria so many times I have them memorized. But A would be in harmony with the general intent and purpose of this article. I've searched and searched, and I can never find any place where the general intent and harmony is spelled out in any way, shape, or form. Right. I mean, my interpretation is, an equitable way of sharing the public waterways. That's kind of the intent. Don't let somebody hog it all, and so on. But it's never spelled out anywhere what A means.
Right.
Lawyers really ought to work on that one. And then, of course, impede safe navigation. Does that include docking, for example? I would say anytime you move your boat, it's probably in navigation. And so some of these where you got to go through a keyhole entry to get in.
Yeah. So that's where the 50-foot. That's where the 50-foot of navigation comes in. When you impede that the navigation channel that affects other people.
We're not talking navigation channel. We're talking impede safe navigation.
Right.
Different.
But that's not the way. I mean, when all of this was written, it was written with the idea of the navigation channel, if I'm correct in that. So, but I mean, because every time you come into a dock, it's a navigation issue, more for some people than others. But
I understand. I'm just saying, if you create a situation where the owner of just a 40-foot seawall lot has to get in between 2 fixed structures that are only 20 feet apart, to me that's impeding safe navigation. And I think that's what we were concerned about today.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with that. When I first started doing this, we would get the special permits and we'd go out and look at it on the ground. And then I think somehow we were told that we're not supposed to do that, or at least it wasn't required. But going out on the ground and looking at it was really helpful to me, because when I went out and looked at it on the ground, I could see whether or not this really looked like it was going to be a problem or not. You look at something and say, If they put that lift in there, that's going to be a real problem. So there are a lot of things that we don't see. For example, we see these docks out there, and we see and there's no lift on the adjacent property. There's no lift out there. There's just a dock, and so you see this dock and a lift sticking out there, and it's like a big sore thumb when it sticks out, and you can look at it and say that's going to be in the way. But then if you took those docks and each one of those adjacent docks and you put a lift on there out to 25 feet, you got the exact same thing and even more. But see, we're looking at it, there is no lift out there, but they could put a lift and it could go out to 25 feet and it's going to stick out more than that little lift in the corner. That little lift in the corner has the least impact on navigation than anything else. The bigger docks and the lift that stick out into the navigation channel that other people are using or stick out close to it, that has much more of an impact.
Yeah, and we've talked about, on multiple occasions, rewriting the code to allow straight ends at the entire end of a canal and almost make it mandatory that they come in straight in or at some form of an angle to make sure that everybody that comes in that way and it's safe navigation for everybody. You know, nobody's trying to, slide a boat in sideways or anything. Everybody has a clear exit, even if it's through a keyhole. It's a clear shot right out to open water, and I know that's just been general discussion on these for a while now.
If you were starting from scratch
Gene,
and building all these places, that'd be great. One of them we looked at today, there was already an existing flat dock with an existing boat on there, and basically what you're saying is he's got to put in a lift in order to make that work. Right. And I don't think we're allowed to do that.
No.
So trying to get a boat into one of these small end canals, trying to parallel park it in there, when there were no lifts all the way around, yeah, people did that. You can't do that anymore, and it's unrealistic to expect that. There's no good way to get in there except coming straight in. And you come in at an angle just because 25 feet coming straight in doesn't give you too much of a boat. Everybody's looking for, at least 26, 27-foot boat.
You're allowed 30 feet on an end.
Huh?
You're allowed 30 feet from the end of a canal.
Right. Yeah, so that's, and so you could put a 30-foot boat in there, just tie it up to pilings and no special permit.
And I know for years, we've had this discussion where, well, I've always been able to take my boat there, and the lot was always vacant. Well, guess what? You probably should have bought the lot if you wanted to be able to continue to use that water, because somebody's going to buy that lot and put something there. It's, just one of those things, if you like the view, buy it kind of a deal. And, it's just because the water was there originally, it's not the intent. That's like if you go down Colony Point Channel or any of the main channels, and like Jake said, everybody's sticking out to the 25 feet, so you just took a 100-foot wide canal and turned it into a 50-foot wide swath. And there's some big boats out on some of these canals, and they're able to come on past other people's lifts and slide in, even on a canal with a lot of moving current like Colony is. It's definitely not easy, for sure.
So the city's out there saying, come to Punta Gorda and boat. We're a boating-centric community, waterfront. Everybody can boat. Everybody needs to come and boat. But not everybody has the same opportunity. These people, if you got 165, well, actually, that's not true. Even if you have a big lot, you may not be able to get a big boat on there. But the guys with the 30-foot lots, the realtors are telling some of them, yeah, you got 30 feet of seawall, you can have a 30-foot boat. I hear that.
I know. And you can tie it up to the seawall, too.
If you can get it in. You better get it in before somebody puts in the dock, because you won't be able to get it out afterwards. So.
Oh.
And the other one is it's sailboat depth water. It's like, yeah, but I've got to go under a bridge. So how are you going to get your sailboat out? I've heard that from people, being told by folks that, it's all sailboat water. But
And to your comment about going out and looking at it, suppose there's a sailboat sitting there versus a trawler.
Oh, yeah.
Does that influence anything? No, because the next owner of the property could be exactly the opposite.
Yeah, I think going out, for me, it was helpful to go out and look at it because I'm a boater and I look at it as, okay, how's this going to affect me? And that was always helpful to me, but.
Well, these folks had a sailboat, and a sailboat, I don't know, it's different. You're a sailboater. No? Not anymore?
Never.
Oh, never? Okay, well.
But you know,
I've run a sailboat,
yeah,
and they're not as controllable as a powerboat.
Sure.
So.
But there's also, if you've got a dock and a lift out to 25 feet on each side, that's totally permissible. The guy with a sailboat that has a hard time turning it around has should not expect to be able to use the water, inside that 25-foot from somebody else's spot. And somebody wants to put in a lift there, then they can do it. And you can't object to it because I won't be able to turn my sailboat around.
Well, that was last month.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I turned a sailboat around on our 100-foot canal many, many times.
Sure.
I would never try to get into that little tiny triangle.
Yeah. Well, you can, I mean, the only way you get in there is you got to just pull straight in. You're not going to be doing a lot of maneuvering there, particularly if it's windy. So.
Okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you got to,
November
do you need a motion for adjournment?
20. Canal Maintenance Committee meeting adjourned.
You smack your gavel, there you go, we're done.
Good.
So everyone knows, I got word back from IAC. We are confirmed for January 18th at 9:30.
Great.
What was it?
January 18th?
At 9:30.